Got a little enthusiasm in there, a little hoorah. Okay,
It has
cool.
something to do with Jeff's green shirt, teal shirt.
Yeah,
Wanted to make sure you
Something.
noticed me.
I might need my sunglasses.
All right, let's find out who's here. Commissioner Zuber, could you call the roll, please?
Certainly, Commissioner Graham Hudak,
Present. Good evening.
Commissioner Engel,
Here.
Commissioner Perkins,
Here,
Commissioner Zuber here, and Chairman Green.
Here. Okay, and of course, we have our community planner, Jeff Goulet, and welcome to you all. We have meeting minutes from May 1st. Do I hear a motion to approve and accept those minutes?
So moved.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm abstaining since I wasn't here.
Okay, let it be noted, Commissioner Zuber is abstaining. Okay, we have an agenda tonight of 5 items. Is there anything late to add from the staff?
No, I don't have any additions.
Anything from the commission?
Nope.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, first agenda item tonight, there's a public hearing, and we're going to have 2 public hearings, and incidentally, public hearings are a vehicle for you, if you so desire, to participate. We do accept comments on the projects after we have kind of opened it up a little bit, and we have an official opening. If you have any comments on that project, we have to ask you to keep it brief, and fill out one of our forms there so that we know the record, and when you get to the podium, you state your name and address. It's a very simple process. So tonight, we've got the first agenda item is the Manchlow rezoning, where we're considering a request to rezone this parcel from rural agricultural to R2 density. This property is located north of Ford Road between Beck and Ridge. Jeff, could you tell us more?
Yes, this was an item that was heard last month due to an issue with the historical zoning on it. It was noticed as RR to R2 instead of RA to R2. Our attorney suggested we renotice it just because the notification in the paper was incorrect. So this is basically a rehearing on an item that you already heard in May. This is property's 11.12 acres located on the north side of Ford between Beck and Ridge, as shown on the aerial. All the surrounding zoning in the area is R2. It's master planned for up to 2 units per acre. It's consistent with the master plan, consistent with the development patterns in the area, and we would recommend approval.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
All right, we've got a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner, I forgot her name, she hasn't been here, Perkins. No, I'm just kidding you, just messing, put something light on the agenda here. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is officially opened. I'm going to go to the audience and ask if there's any comments or concerns. Raise your hand and we'll go from there. Everybody's so quiet. No comments.
Yeah, the neighbors were re-notified and explained to it was a rehearing, so.
Close the public hearing?
Support.
All right, I've got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Engel and support by Commissioner Zuber. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we are off to the commission then. Any comments? Yes.
I know that, just to refresh my memory, so basically, could you just let me know, we had talked about this last time, I believe. Did we discuss trees at all? I noticed that this is a field.
Well, there's a drain that runs along the north side of the property line, and there's basically, you'll notice on the north side of the property line and the south side of the property line, there's a stand of trees. So there is a drain and a small floodplain associated with that drain that runs through there. So, and the rest of it is, is kind of more or less an open field. So when they come in and do some type of development, they'll have to do a tree survey and show us the topography on the site to determine what's usable on the site and what's not.
Okay, could you also refresh my memory on any traffic study that would be done?
On a site this small, on 11 acres of R2, depending on how many lots they do, this was a leftover piece from the Fellows Creek Estate subdivision. The farmer that owned all of the original tract there was holding out for commercial a long time ago on this parcel. So it was recently sold, ideally, it would have been folded into the subdivision when it was done. So there was a subdivision stub street left there at the end of River Way. So any development that occurs here will probably stub into that street and have an access onto Ford Road. MDOT will evaluate the traffic in conjunction with any driveway permit. On 11 acres, the most they can get on it, is probably going to be 15, 16 lots at the most, and probably not even that with the trees and the creek in the back. So we're not sure exactly what the plans are, but something that small wouldn't trip any kind of threshold for a traffic analysis.
Look at the left-hand turn issues if there's are any. 'Cause
Yeah, MDOT's engineers would look at, all of those. They would look at the opposing driveways, they would look at any tapers that are required, just like they do. They have certain engineering warrants they look at from an engineering standpoint for, the general highway standards for the state highway trunk system that they would evaluate the driveway entrance with. So.
Chairman Green, I'd like to make a motion. I move to recommend approval of the request to rezone the subject parcel, tax parcel as noted in the minutes, or in the agenda, from RA, Rural Agricultural District, to R2, Single Family Residential District.
Support.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and a support by Commissioner Perkins. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner Zuber, could you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Graham-Hudak? Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Okay, so we will change that density. Our second public hearing of the evening is the 2017 zoning ordinance amendments. This has a variety of changes to it. And this is we're considering a request to amend according to this. So Jeff, could you tell us more about it?
Yes, there's just several amendments that we're proposing for consideration from the Planning Commission. Some of these have to do with permitted special land uses in a couple of our districts, and one has to do with the sign ordinance. The first change to section 16.02 and 17.02. Right now, we allow pet daycare in the C2 and C3 districts. We limit those to single-tenant buildings as special land use, even though we don't have the same restriction on indoor pet boarding. The proposed change would eliminate the restriction and allow consideration of these uses in multi-tenant buildings. So if somebody wanted to do a pet daycare, like in a strip center or something, that could be considered if it was appropriate in that particular area. So there's no runs allowed in indoor pet boarding facilities. So it would be the first change, would just get rid of the restriction to the single-tenant restriction for that use. It would still require a special land use and require a public hearing with the Planning Commission to evaluate the appropriateness of the use at any particular location. The second change is to sections 22.02, which is our general industrial and light industrial districts, and 6.02M, which are site development standards. Many years ago, we moved many warehouses or personal storage facilities from the LI districts to the general industrial district. At that time, I think the board felt that we were getting too many warehouse facilities, and it was their way of restricting where they could go. The proposed change is to basically put those back into LI as a special land use, eliminate the requirement for a night watchman's quarter, since that's not an industry standard any longer, and then restrict facilities from engaging in truck rental facilities. A lot of them want to have like U-Haul trucks in conjunction with them, but most of the time they don't have room for the trucks. So they would be required to get a special land use for that use also. So we just want to make sure that's an issue that code enforcement's been having in some of our existing mini warehouse facilities, is that after they get in there, they start, bringing in the U-Hauls and start renting those out and clogging up all of the fire lanes around the mini warehouses. So, in current standards, a lot of the mini warehouses are climate-controlled facilities, like the newer facility down near Beck in Michigan. Sometimes they have a combination of climate-controlled facilities and, the standard, roll-up door type of facilities. But this would, be a special land use that we would have the opportunity to evaluate the use based on on where it was being proposed. So this just allow some more flexibility in the code, given some dynamics along Michigan Avenue especially. The third change is to Article 6A15, which is our sign code. Right now, our ordinance currently limits window signs to no more than 25%, based on some evaluation that our building official did over the past couple of years on window signs. One of the big issues we have with window signs is not being able to see into the store from a safety standpoint, especially when they're plastering signs all over the door and next to the door. So generally, from a safety standpoint, you want to be able to see into the business, see where the register is, see where the service area is, and this would basically provide a restriction that they can't be within 3 feet of a door for safety reasons. So that would add an additional restriction to the sign code for the window signage. And then the last change is basically a typographical error change. Many years ago, I think back in 2003, when we changed the ordinance, which started regulating massage establishments, when they started licensing them at the state level, we didn't remove the reference to massage parlors under the adult regulated business section. So this change just gets rid of that error. We provide for a definition, specific definition for a licensed massage establishments, and we provide specific requirements in the code for those. For some reason, this language still got stuck under adult regulated business, which were, at that time, the illegal massage parlors. So we didn't intend to keep that in there for the legal massage establishments. So we just need to get rid of that conflict in the code. So in a nutshell, those are the 4 changes that we're proposing that you make a recommendation to the board on, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. We're going to need to open a public hearing.
I'll move to open a public hearing.
Support.
Got a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Perkins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I'm going to start with the commission this time, because there may be some questions that if anyone in the audience wants to respond to, they can. Anyone have any comments on any of these features of the amendment? No?
I'm all set.
All set? I just have a question on the signage. The percentage of the window signage does not affect the percentage of the signage overall for a business, correct? It's a totally separate
That's a
package?
separate requirement, right?
Okay, all right.
And the building department is going to start enforcing the 25% and starting sending letters out to all the businesses and shopping centers, giving them a certain amount of time to come into compliance. But they wanted to make sure we had this in place first before they started enforcing the restrictions.
So when a business, and we've seen this happen, when a business comes in and they let's say, have a very large temporary sign made and plastered on the outside of the business, that's not considered a window sign.
That's a temporary banner. They are only allowed to have that for a certain period of time when they open.
They have to get prior approval of that, right?
Banner permits require permits, right?
So when we do this ordinance, I mean, you will let people know they aren't going to just go in and start giving.
Right. The building department already has a communication plan, and letters will start going out, giving them a certain amount of time to come into compliance. Right now, we have a restriction to the 25%. The only thing that this does is add the restriction that it can't be within 3 feet of the door. So right now, we haven't, it hasn't been enforced fully for a number of years, and in many cases, it's getting out of hand, and certain businesses plaster 100% of their window surface with some typographic or signage. So, just need to kind of rein things in a little bit, but this is one of the, from a safety standpoint, public safety and the building department felt this was a good provision to add to the ordinance. So, but I think there's like going to be a 4-month window for businesses to come into compliance, so.
Trucks, I mean, you say you're not going to allow them to rent trucks at all then?
No, they would just have to apply for a separate special land use for that. So what happens is a lot of them come in and they get their approval for the mini warehouse, and then they haven't accommodated any parking or storage area for the trucks, and then they'll start adding that as a service to their business. And then, so this was just something that, okay, just because you have mini warehouse doesn't mean you can have rental trucks. You also have to apply for a separate approval for rental trucks and show us that you meet the requirements for that use also if you're going to do it. Okay.
right, we're going to go to the audience. Any comments, concerns, questions, anything about this change to our ordinance? Oh, once again, quiet. Okay. Going once, twice.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support?
All right, we've got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Perkins and support by Commissioner Zuber. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any further comments or anything at all from the commission? All set?
I would like to make a motion again. I move to recommend approval of the proposed amendment to sections 16.02, 17.02, 22.02, 6.02, and 6A.15 of Appendix A, zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the Charter Township of Canton, as provided in the attached ordinance.
Support.
All right, I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Perkins. Any further discussion on that motion? Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Certainly, Commissioner Graham-Hudak, Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes.
Almost forgot my name.
Talking to yourself again. Okay, this motion, this would go to the trustees then for...
2 readings over the next month.
Okay, all right. Our next agenda item is a site plan. We are considering a final site plan approval for Aspen Ridge. This property is located south of Salts and west of Beck Road. Jeff, could you tell us more?
Yes, this is a 14-acre site, Aspen Ridge, located at the south side of Salts and west of Beck Road, zoned R3. The proposal is for 29 lots. The Planning Commission looked at the preliminary site plan earlier this year. They have completed their site engineering. They have all their outside agency permits, and they will be entering into a financial escrow agreement with the township prior to review by the township board here in the next few weeks. They've met all the requirements of the condominium ordinance. They're in for their tree removal permit, and they've got everything ready to go and should be ready to start construction anytime on this. So this is just a request for final site plan, which means everything's designed, everything's approved, they have all their permits. So we'd recommend approval.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Is a project sponsor here? Would you like to care to enlighten us more, please?
How are you tonight?
Welcome. Hi. Good.
Are there any specific questions I can answer for you? My name is John Goldman, and I'm the developer and also builder on the project, Aspen Ridge.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for joining us tonight. Commission, any questions, comments, concerns?
Looks good.
I have one question. This just has to do with just flow. Looking at what's going on at Beck and Salts and driving it frequently, I notice at certain times of the day it's starting to get pretty congested through there. Are we concerned at all that this configuration of road through this development would become a workaround or a pass-through for people trying to avoid the light or avoid the traffic jam there?
I mean, since there's a light now there, that's resolved a lot of the traffic at that intersection, so I don't know why it would become a cut-through, so.
Well, I guess because it can also back things up. And if you were there and you saw the backup and you wanted to go along the other road, you might.
People always follow the path of least resistance, no matter where it's at, and so.
Okay. I mean, is that something that could require special signage or?
I mean, it's a private road, but generally, the private road has easements over it for public access, so, you know, I don't know how you're really going to stop people from cutting through. I mean,
Right.
if you cut through to go toward Beck, that would be a fatal flaw unless you're turning right, because you couldn't turn left. So it'd be better to go to the light and wait for your turn to turn left on Beck at the light. So with the light going in, I think that resolves a lot of the issues in this area. Since this has 2 points of access, you know, the people that live in here are going to use the path of least resistance either. If they're turning left on Beck, they're going to go out to Salts and go to the light and turn left. If they're turning right, they're probably going to go and use their subdivision street and turn right and avoid the intersection. So, I mean, that's one nice thing about having 2 points of access on 2 different streets. It gives, you know, residents, you know, options based on which direction of travel they're going.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Yes.
So was there a traffic study done at all? Was that one of the permits? I see a list of permits that they
The
had.
county evaluated the driveways, and the permits for the county have been issued for both driveways. So,
Any other permits? What other permits did you have to get? Any environmental at all?
their storm permit, their water and sewer permits. So the county issues the storm discharge permit, the township approves the water and sewer permits and sends those off to DEQ for approval. So all of those permits have been issued.
How many units are in here?
29.
Nine. How close are we to that maximum for our water and sewer? I think it was 115,000 residents or something, wasn't it?
Well, the water and sewer, the sanitary sewer plans in terms of the densities, basically they did an evaluation of parcel by parcel based on zoning and master plan, and they factored in what the maximum allowable number of units were on every parcel. So, this is consistent. This is actually closer to 2 units per acre than it is 3 units per acre. From a sewer standpoint, this was probably planned out at 3 per acre, for the number of units that are here. So it was probably planned for close to 40 units, not 29 units from a sewer standpoint, from a future planning standpoint in the sewer model. So this is way under the density that the sewer model factored in.
When is the completion date targeted?
Expect to start construction this August, so probably take a couple years to finish.
Roads in by end of fall. So.
Commission?
Oh, I'm all set.
Okay, as am I. My question was answered. Do I hear a motion?
I move to recommend final approval of the site plan for Aspen Ridge Site Condominiums conditioned upon receipt of all required financial guarantees, outside agency permits, and copies of the master deed and condominium bylaws in recordable format prior to consideration by the Board of Trustees.
We've received everything except for the financial securities, so.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Perkins. Boy, you guys are
I know.
handling everything here tonight. Thank you for doing that, yeah. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Graham-Hudak? Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
All right, our next agenda item tonight is a site plan approval for Canton Acreage Medical Building, which this property is located north of Cherry Hill and west of Canton Center. Jeff, could you tell us more?
Okay, this is a first phase site plan for a office commercial complex at Canton Center and Cherry Hill. A number of years ago, this was planned for a 40,000 square foot shopping center that never materialized. 6.2 acres, currently vacant. There's an existing boulevard that serves the site in from Canton Center that currently serves the existing bank there on the north side of the boulevard. The property also has a piece of property that has future access out onto Cherry Hill. When the existing strip center on Cherry Hill and the shopping center site on this site were developed, originally there was a condition on both site plans that required the existing driveway on Cherry Hill for the strip center to be removed and connected to the driveway to the bigger shopping center at the time it got developed. So that restriction is still in place. They know there's an expectation when they push that driveway through to Cherry Hill that they have to reconfigure the driveway for the shopping center at that point or work with the property owner to do that. But this phase of site plan is just for the first 10,000 square foot building. That's going to be in the southwest corner of the property, kind of behind the strip center. They have, as you can see, the conceptual site plan here shows future development sites, off of the boulevard and on the north side of the property. So the first phase is just a 10,000 square foot medical office building to be served at the end of the existing boulevard that's already there. At this point in time, they would not push that driveway out to Cherry Hill Road until they did future phases of the development. So they have a heavy landscape buffer behind the subdivision to the west. They'll be providing stormwater underneath a future parking lot area across from the bank. So a good portion of the stormwater will be underground to maintain the above-ground area for building and parking lot areas in the future. Project sponsors here tonight if you'd like to ask them any questions. Other than that, staff feels that the site plan meets all the requirements of our zoning code, and we would recommend approval of the first phase plan as shown.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, sir.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Bill Knighton from the Manic Smith Group. We prepared the site plans, and we feel it's a beautiful building. We'll be an asset to the community. We meet all the zoning requirements, and we're here to answer any questions you might have. We have the architect here and the owner, so any questions you might have, we'd love to answer them for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. My first question, and Jeff could probably answer this, it's probably not as much for you. The future driveway to the south, which obviously is not going to come, depends on business, right? But let's say that it takes several years. It's just going to be a grassy area? It's just going to be just a mowed grass?
I'll have to keep it mowed like it is now, so.
Because there has been a push towards more pedestrianism in the township, is there a possibility maybe of adding, let's say, a pedestrian walkway from through that area up to the medical building? I mean, it's just temporary, nothing, not your permanent concrete or anything. I would imagine.
Well, there's a
if they wanted-
sidewalk across the front of the property already.
I understand that, but, you know, it's just an access that I could see a possibility of utilizing until such time as to
Yeah.
make that a full driveway. It's a consideration.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. It's not, at the current time, I don't know if it's a real attractive place to walk because of just you're at the back of a wall there.
Yeah, it'd be adjacent to Rose's Restaurant wall.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm thinking also is you've got a subdivision to the south of there. There are people that perhaps may want to walk to that medical office building. They would have to go
They'd have to go through private property, though.
private property, what's that?
If you want to go
If you-
from here to there, you
They're
have
at
to
the
go through
planning
private
commission
property.
No, I'm talking about down here,
They're at the
this
planning
subdivision there,
On the other
on
side?
the other side of Cherry Hill. Whereas, and they'd
There's-
have to go up to the corner.
Right, well,
and-
how else are
and-
they going to
and
get
walk.
there?
Well, if they could come, and if there was a path walking up there, they could walk up.
You want them to
through
cross Cherry Hill 500 feet south of the light, or west
Yeah,
of the light?
they'd have to go to the intersection
there.
anyways,
Like they're not
right?
going to do that anyway? It's just an idea. It's just an idea. It's not a requirement, obviously. I'm just looking for some possibilities.
Well,
of,
it would make more sense to work with the two adjacent property owners and getting connections between parking lots between the shopping center and Rose's to this site versus, since you already have people on those sites that may be parked there that, you know, for example, I don't know why people would want to walk to the medical building. There's no place really to walk to unless if you have an
why do
appointment
people-
there.
Why do people walk anywhere?
I
mean,
know.
right?
But,
So-
you know, right now you already have the ability to get into each of the sites, you know, Rose's site and to the strip center site. You could connect to those sites internally rather than putting a walk-in and tearing it out later when you put the driveway in.
Jeff, there's three
You know-
sites on here that says future development.
Right.
When do you put the road in? When 2 of them are done, or 3 of them are done, or is there any criteria for that established?
Not specifically, no. I would expect when the site next to Rose's comes in on the north side off the boulevard, that it would make sense to bring that driveway out, because then you would have more traffic generation that may need access from Cherry Hill.
And that driveway that's into that little shopping center, that goes away?
Yeah, and then they'd have to connect that driveway, the parking lot over to the new driveway, so.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're gonna have 4 driveways there, and that's not a good thing, so.
Right, I'm with you. Okay.
Anything else?
Where it says future development, I mean, is that going to stay grassy or is that going to be concrete? We have enough concrete
Going
frontage.
to just stay grass.
So what kind of future development are you looking at? I mean, just more medical buildings?
Have
or-
that slide, Jeff?
It just says future
Three
development.
additional buildings, one to the north, one to the east, and one to the east of the building shown, so.
The one up
three-
in the one up in the northeast corner is gonna be a medical office building also. The owner of the property is planning on doing their own building on that corner. The 2 front properties that are right on Canton Center, you know, may be office or they may be retail.
Go to page 64, it shows the site plan with all the buildings and proposed parking areas, I mean, schematic.
Yeah, it's a concept at this point. You had it there for a minute.
Next, might be the next page. There it
There's
is.
the existing building here. Is there another sheet?
Had the
That's
slide
it.
up for a minute.
Oh,
Right there.
yeah, there it is.
Oh, yeah.
This is where the stormwater is going, right here underneath the future parking lot, and there'll be another building here. So they could be all office use.
We're still looking at a lot of concrete. I mean, when you drive along, right now, when you're driving along, you see fields or concrete, so we're putting parking lots on the front road again. That's just a concern I have, just, more people to see concrete rather than.
Yeah, they'll have the screen berm, the required screen berm in front.
Cherry Hill and Canton Center, that is becoming a very, one of the most dangerous roads. I mean, we've already lost one police car there. That's a really, really busy intersection. And so, I mean, do we have any projections of traffic at all there? I know even just for.
Well, the projections for traffic were done when we five-laned Cherry Hill Road and added the additional lanes to the Canton Center Cherry Hill intersection. So you have a five-lane intersection in four directions. So all of the improvements to the intersection have been completed to the maximum that can be completed.
Light, because I know that.
Well, the light has protected lefts in all directions. So the light has been phased, so there's protected lefts, turns in all four directions. So, you've got a five-lane cross-section with a full signalized intersection and crosswalks, there. If people are driving too fast and they are pushing through a red light, they're going to do that. We can't cause people to drive safely if they're not going to, be careful and drive safely, unfortunately. So the county, when we did the improvement on Cherry Hill west of Canton Center, we did improve that intersection to, and they did a future projection, including how much commercial could be at this intersection when they factored in the improvements to the roadway. When that $3 million improvement was done, they made all of those improvements that they could make to the intersection to make it the safest possible.
As it is, it takes 6 lights to get through there.
Only when you're dropping your kid off for school. Let them
No,
drive the bus.
no.
Let them ride the bus.
Track, soccer, 6 lights to get through that intersection. It's not an easy intersection. Between, yeah.
Between
apparently.
7:55 and 8:05
Yes,
in the morning.
and between 4 and 7 in the evening.
I drive Canton Center every day, and I don't.
No, Cherry Hill is,
Cherry Hill.
it's
Oh,
back
Cherry Hill.
East and
Oh.
west.
on east and west on
When
Cherry
I came
Hill.
into work at 6:30, I didn't have problems. That wasn't bad.
Okay, back
30
to
this
the
evening?
project.
Wow.
That's a
Back to the
bad
project.
intersection.
I have a question about buffering. Even though to the northeast, that future development is not happening right away, is there any reason why we shouldn't go ahead and buffer between that business area and the two houses that are up there? We show the buffering
Well-
ending at the parking lot of the new
I think we made
development.
the suggestion, the buffer is required between, the parking lot and the development that's occurring and the residential. It's up to them if they want to go ahead and add that to the first phase and include and get that berm established. The problem is once the berm goes in and they still have to grade out that site, a lot of stuff that they plant there could get damaged just for grading and utility work. That's probably one reason why they didn't want to do it at this time. Because when they put the building in and they're extending utilities around the building, they're going to have to grade into that area. So it's one of those things.
Well, I was just thinking that things like that may have
We
been-
made the suggestion in terms of them to evaluate it so they could get it established before that
Yeah.
second building came in.
The thought occurred to me that the growth of the plantings could be consistent if you did them all at that initial time.
Would
It's
agree with
just another plus, and the buffering would have more effect or more meaning at that point.
Bill, was there a reason why they didn't want to go ahead and do it at this time?
Well, just what you mentioned, the flexibility, and we're hoping the second building comes within a year or so. So I don't think there's going to be a significant
Big
difference.
difference in, okay. Let's hope you're right. Okay.
I think they had a tenant for this building, and that building they wanted to get going on this building right away, so.
Zone commercial right now?
Yeah, it's all Zone C2. So C2, when it's adjacent to residential, has additional buffer requirements. We have a 60-foot setback instead of a 30-foot setback, and 30 feet of that 60 feet has to be a landscape buffer. So when it's adjacent to residential, we have kind of double the requirements that we would normally have along that side setback.
I remember when this was, when we had, this- how many years ago was it when that other project came through? It was a long time.
20 years ago, yeah.
Long time. But this looks like a good project. I like the design of the building. I commend the architect. on it.
Eric there.
Very nice. Yep.
Ask him a question, though. He drove a long way. It'd be
Yeah,
great to
really,
ask him a
well,
question.
wait, I do have a question.
Okay, from architect to architect, we've
I
got a
have
question up here.
Why is your name not on the drawings? Oh, okay. What firm are you with?
What firm?
Okay. Okay, well, I just want to make sure it was worth your while. Okay.
Thank you for coming. Do appreciate it.
If you approve it, it's worth it, right?
Yeah, really.
Anything else
As
from
long
the
as you don't
commission?
make any changes, you know, so.
Shall I again? I'm on a streak here.
Go for it.
I move to recommend approval of the site plan for the first phase of Canton Acreage Medical Building on tax parcels as noted in the model motion, as proposed.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Engel. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Graham-Hudek? Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes. Good luck to
Very
you.
much.
Yep. Mhm. Have a safe trip back.
Yes. Drive safely, drive carefully.
Yeah, stay away from Cherry Hill and Canton Center.
All progress. We're just having too much.
All right, where are we here?
That's not a
Okay,
public
so
hearing.
we have agenda item 5, which is the, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Anand Village, where we're considering site plan approval on property which is located on the southeast corner of Geddes and Denton Road. Jeff, could you tell us more?
Yes, this is the 11.5 acre parcel zoned R4 at Geddes and Denton Road. We've been going through site plan review on this for a couple of years now, I think. They've basically simplified the plan. This is a detached condo project that have building pads that have 10-foot separation, 25-foot setback from the edge of the private road and 35-foot rear setback, similar to a single-family development, but they're all detached, so there aren't separate lots. So this is very similar in layout to the Crystal Village project, which surrounds it to the south and to the east. The project meets all the requirements of the zoning code. The fire department asked for because it has more than 30 units, they asked for a secondary access point. Let me bring up the plan. Let's see. So the secondary access point, they had made a request of Crystal Village's developer to do kind of a grass paver connection to the end of Hawkesbury, which is basically to the south. South is to the right on this plan. That wasn't well received by the association there, so they've removed that from the plan. They had to provide a grass paver access to their pond anyway for, there's a pump station for the pond for the stormwater system, so they just essentially extended that 20-foot drive out from a grass paver standpoint out to Denton Road as an emergency access point to meet the fire department requirements. The boulevard in the loop meets all of the requirements for the zoning and condominium associations, requirement for access. They do have streetlights within the development. This will be kind of an empty nester type of project, all single-story units, some with 40-foot wide footprints, some with 50-foot wide footprints. The stormwater, for the most part, is underground in the center green space, so they preserve the center area as a grassy area in between the units. And then there's a small storm system at the corner for their forebay and pumping area out to the Denton Road right-of-way for their discharge area. Other than that, it's pretty compatible with what's around it. They do have an area in front of the pond there adjacent to the road that's for a future clubhouse. That's not under consideration tonight. They're not planning on building the clubhouse right away. They'll have to come in with a separate site plan for the clubhouse. We've got some residents from Crystal Village here tonight. They're concerned because this has been going back and forth so many times, so I'm sure they're here to see what's being proposed and what you're reviewing tonight. So you may want to take some comments or questions if I think Brian Amon is here to represent the project sponsor.
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Amon?
Good evening, thank you for the chance to be here to talk about this. I think Jeff did a great job in terms of describing the project. Otherwise, we'll just be prepared to help answer any questions that might come up from you, the commissioner or the neighbors. So,
Is this designed to predominantly be a senior project?
well, empty nester, I'm turning 60, so are you calling me a senior?
Well, I'm 66, so I
Wow,
think
okay, yeah, no, I'm getting younger every day. My grandkids require it, but, yeah, but it's expected that it'll be pretty much an empty nester type project. We think it's going to essentially mirror what's around it.
What's around it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they going to age restrict it in the master deed, Brian, or are they intending
Yeah,
to?
well, we're really looking at all that, but whether we go with the age restriction or not, we're in terms of looking, whether we build it, develop it, or whether we sell it or whatever. But whatever happens with it, we know the nature of the product and the nature of the development is going to be that it's essentially going to be empty nester. We're not designing any amenities for kids or those kinds of things in this project, so. Yeah.
The commission have any questions, anything?
Went back and forth.
Well, we've gone through probably 7 site plan reviews on this. This was originally designed with tunnels that connected all of the basements with access to the future clubhouse. Due to engineering difficulties with stormwater and other utilities, they decided to go back. It was probably very expensive to build also, so they decided to go back and do a more standard detached condominium development. So just because of that and the stormwater design, we've had to go back and forth internally from a staff standpoint with a lot of reviews on this project. So this is the final result that meets all the requirements of the ordinance.
Yeah, the desire about the tunnel is there was a thought that it would provide a great year-round exercise, walking amenity. Ultimately, the decision was not to go that way. We were also originally anticipating a Gettys Road exit, not Denton Road. So between stuff with the county and things like that, it's been through. And then the initial presence behind the project, Pradeep Chowdhury passed away, so that has now, and so we're now through several versions, but the planning department's been great and very patient with all the progress. And he mentioned the 4-bay out by the corner. That's as much of an aesthetic feature as it is functional. It's trying to provide a little bit of a nice appearance of a water feature there as well, so, yeah.
Some of the resident concerns before?
I'll let you hear from them if they have questions.
I have a question, Brent.
Yeah,
So there is
sure.
no access to Gettys Road, right?
No access to Gettys.
And,
Yeah.
and Hawkesbury Court is just going to dead end there at the property line?
Pretty much.
That's what it does now. There's a T turnaround at the
Yeah.
end of Hawkesbury. So
Yeah.
It was a thought at one
that's
time.
right. That's right here, basically.
If in fact, ultimately, the associations chose to, it's set up that there could be a connection between the two, but it would have to be a mutual decision by the associations. The
Right now,
associations
that's
essentially.
not happening.
Not at this point. When I spoke with Mr. Boji, essentially the association is now part of the board. He didn't think it would be well received at this point in time. And ultimately, in light of our ease of another approach, if ultimately the associations decide it's in their mutual interest to provide that, great, they'll have that option. It'll be entirely within their discretion.
Yeah, Crystal Village has access to Denton as their primary entrance, but they also have access out to Gettys through Ravensfield, because that was part of the original Ravensfield development, so.
And these units will essentially mirror the appearance of those in Crystal and meet the brick requirements of the township and those kinds of things, so.
Thank you.
All single story, yeah.
The road, that road at the top used to, the court used to go, was it originally designed to go out to Gettys?
Originally, the original design you probably saw when we did when we did the rezoning, we showed a conceptual plan of it out to Gettys, correct?
No. But in deference to the one unit there, you don't want, this is kind of mirroring the project we had earlier tonight, where you're kind of, you could avoid a traffic light, depending on which way you're going, if you had access prematurely to getting to the traffic light.
In this particular case, there's a 3-lane road with a center turn lane in and out of the development that was put in by the county to serve basically Crystal Village, this project, and the Pulte project on the other side of the street. There's no opposing driveways, essentially on that side of Gettys Road. So it should, the county evaluated it and made a determination that the separation between driveways was adequate, and with the center turn lane, that essentially goes all the way down to the Grandview entrance, it's more than sufficient.
And the Hawkesbury situation, while not accessible for vehicular, is there a possibility of having just a pedestrian access there to go from one neighborhood to another on foot?
Certainly, if the other association were desirous of it, we'd be willing to do that just for pedestrian purposes, but, it
would
had to be a
be
mutual decision,
a
and that's
mutual
being
thing.
partially
Yeah,
run. Yeah.
Let me get on my soapbox here. I think we're pretty much obsessed with these social silos, is what I call them, where you're stuck in your neighborhood, and if you want to walk to another neighborhood, you got to go out on the main road and then back in again. And people are more prone to walking. I agree with not having the vehicular access everywhere, but I think people should be able to ride their bikes or walk or push their strollers or what have you, pretty much from neighborhood to neighborhood without getting on heavy traffic.
Well, and I know your desire to always be physically active and recreating in all kinds of ways. I do think it's possible for people to walk on grass. So that's, I think, like why God invented it. So there will be grass there. So it won't be impossible for that to happen. But there's no easement for that. So technically, the residents of the subdivision to the south, the condo to the south, would have to ultimately provide for that pursuant to an easement agreement for ingress and egress and that. So, yeah.
Maybe one day we'll put something like that in an ordinance that requires.
I mean,
It's always
that's something-
encouraged. It's always encouraged.
I mean, that's something they can consider between now and the time they come in for final site plan. If that's something that's desirable by both communities, they can work that out between the two of them and come back in.
Looks like a good project. I like the simplicity of the designs. I think it probably will end up being more empty nester and older folks because it looks like it's something low maintenance requirements and stuff like that. So I know that we need a lot of that kind of thing. Anyone else from the commission? And I do like the pond at the corner. Obviously because you have to have the little spritzer and all that kind of stuff. That always makes it, yeah. You gotta have those kind of. Plus, there's one at the other end down at Beck, right? A big one there, yeah. So. Okay.
You want to take any
Oh,
comments?
yes. Okay, you wanted to have a comment. Would you come on up, please? Thank you for reminding me.
Hi, my name is Anna M. Nichols. I'm representing the Crystal Village of Denton. Our neighborhood just requests to take into consideration the one reason why Wrenwood and the end of Hawkesbury Court purchased their lots was because of the aesthetic feature of the trees. And we would hope that in your care of taking down trees, that you leave as many of those trees up between our lots as possible, just because aesthetically, we've gotten rid of deer now because of all of the foliage that has been taken off, and we've got little finches, and we've got all sorts of birds that live in there, and we would just like for you to take into consideration that as many trees, the dead trees, of course, can go. We'd appreciate that. But as many of the live foliage as possible remain, just for aesthetic and for the wildlife.
Mr. Amon, would you?
If this
care to
plan,
comment?
if this plan shows the tree removal plan, you'll see most of the trees along the property line will go just because of their condition and the need to grade and drain it properly.
But some of them are,
Some of them will be saved, but you'll see the number of trees here, a good portion of them will.
a number of them, I agree, are down, but we'd like you to save as many of them as possible.
Yeah, they've been identified, the ones that are being saved are identified on the tree removal plan.
Okay. And then I trust that MDOT, when they did their traffic study, took into consideration the Pulte and the
Okay.
extra 44 from our Phase 2 and the additional 42 in this new.
Well, that's why Wayne County three-laned the
Right,
road with a
okay.
turn lane.
We just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that improvement was made based on
Okay.
what they knew was coming in.
But aesthetically, trees were our main concern.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, that
Yes.
certainly, since we have to pay to remove a tree, if there's a tree that we can save that we don't have to remove in light of either underground utilities or a building, then obviously it's the desire to remain aesthetically as as much as possible with those current trees. We'll see the tree plan does show exactly what the expectation is. Sometimes when you get on site, you get a little bit of surprise here and there because you may think you missed a tree, but you hit the root system or something like that or whatever. But
I mean,
yeah,
the
so-
planting plan shows a number of trees because they have tree
Right.
replacement due. So this is the colored planting plan, so it shows what trees will be, the little blue circles on there are the trees that'll remain. The green circles are the new evergreens and trees that'll be placed behind the units. So there's quite a bit of new tree planting that'll be going on along the backs of those units, just for tree.
And I would add, there's nothing that restricts the association for that development of planting their own trees on their own rears all day long. They have that freedom, so we would encourage that as well.
Okay, anyone else have a comment, concern? Yes, come on up. This is not a public hearing, but we'll treat it like one.
But I wanted to address Mr. Green's concern about having mobility between the two. I'm Maureen Good, and I also live in Crystal Village. I don't know if you're aware of it, but we do have a sidewalk.
Yeah.
And sidewalks are for walking. And I would think that they would also include in their plan an extension of that sidewalk up to Getty's, and then maybe even bring it around as far as Ravensfield.
They have
so that-
sidewalks along both roads,
Yes,
Maureen.
We have
roads.
that.
Absolutely.
So
Along
therefore,
Getty's.
if you have one pathway, you don't need several. Okay, my other concern is the traffic problem. I have a view of Denton Road. And on that view, every morning, you have, thank God, the traffic light. That has saved many a life. But between the buses that come up through there, the traffic that comes up through there, we are backed up past our entryway. And if you have another more than 48, because majority of homesteads have more than one driver, then you have Pulte, which will again be, their entry and exit will be also Denton. You know, why wasn't Getty's considered as an option on their access road? Because certainly, you know, with that much confined to one particular area, they had that whole area open to them.
Gotcha, okay. Mr. Heyman has a comment about that.
Certainly, from what we understand, obviously, when you go through, as Mr. Goulet explained earlier, we've been through the Wayne County preliminary review process. This will enable us to go through a final review with them when they'll actually, you know, focus more definitely on all these items. But two factors that it's our understanding based on their informal notations have been, one, as bad as you think Denton is, Getty's is traditionally a lot worse on the east-west traffic heading in there. So they view there as being Getty's being much more loaded than Denton in terms of traffic. Secondly, they always seek to find entrances and curb cuts as far from intersections as possible. And so since this property is actually longer north and south than it is east and west, we're able to cue that curb cut off of Denton, which they view as a less busy road than Getty's. And so that's why we understand the county chose it to be there. And we were prepared to go Getty's originally. The county has said to us they believe the prudent way, based on their years of experience and all their understanding of traffic data, even with all the school buses, was to have it there, as they've indicated. So
the county did not want an entrance on Getty's and Denton?
they
wanted
were
to
not
limit to one?
receptive to an entrance on Getty's, yeah.
They wanted only one entrance?
Yeah, well, yeah, they essentially, they basically, one boulevarded entrance is sufficient. They don't want to give more than they need, more curb cuts than necessary than how they are with that, so.
They chose Denton because it's farther south from the intersection.
Farther from the intersection itself, and also doesn't provide, could you imagine, from their perspective, trying to turn left out of this in to go west on Getty's, and they said that they've seen traffic stacking up past this as well, and so they view Getty's as a greater challenge than Denton in terms of morning traffic. And I wouldn't disagree if they've ever made a morning trip out to St. Joe Hospital. It's, you know, you're backed up east of that intersection as it relates. The light has improved the situation, and as they
But it
learned
hasn't
to.
eliminated the situation.
Do you want? I won't interrupt you. You can speak if you want to.
I really feel very strong.
Well, that,
There are so many schools.
okay, Maureen, we understand your concern. We share the same concern, and we do everything possible to minimize any traffic impacts for any developments. Ultimately, the roads are the county roads, and they're the ones that grant the permits for improvements to the county roads. The county spent a lot of money last year on improving that whole intersection and putting the 3 lanes in based on what they knew was coming in. So essentially, many times the county doesn't 3-lane a road that far south to take care of future traffic problems. But in this particular case, they knew what was coming in, and they knew what the backups were at the intersection and what the timing was. So that's why they spent over $1 million on that intersection to put that improvement all the way down. And a lot of that money came from the developers. Crystal Village and Grandview paid actually to extend that 3-lane cross-section all the way down to Grandview's thing. As part of their county permit, when the county evaluated that, the county goes, okay, instead of us having you put the tapers in at this point, give us the money and we'll do the improvement when we do the intersection. So the county was actually very, was actually planning ahead in this particular case, which doesn't happen a lot of times, and they put the improvement in. Part of the issue is during school hours, and I think, Anne Marie, in the morning when kids are on the bus and when parents are dropping the kids off to the charter schools, especially when they're on the road dropping kids off, down the street, that particular period of the morning is always going to be congested because it's the same time everybody's going to work. They're dropping their kids off and then going to work. So you have, 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there where that intersection is going to back up. That's just a fact of life no matter where you go. That's just what's going to happen because everybody's on the road at the same time. One of the issues that'll happen in the future as the traffic patterns start to soften out, then the county will evaluate the timing of the light and determine, and they'll maximize the green times in each direction based on where the heaviest traffic is at any point in time. So that's what the traffic monitors are up there on the mast arms. You've got those sensors up there, and those sensors basically sense how many cars are in the lanes to turn left and how many cars are in the lanes to turn right. And the traffic, basically the traffic light is controlled by how many cars are in each lane at any point in time in terms of changing the timing on those lights. So I can get into a more, we can have the traffic engineer come in and talk to you about how they evaluate the roadways and how they control that design. But ultimately, it's the county decision on how that works, and it's their road to maintain and make sure it's safe. So we bring our concerns to them as when projects come in, and we go, okay, we've got this project coming in, what direction should we go with this? We try to have them get with the county ahead of time before they even come see us in terms of what the county is going to require. And as Mr. Amon explained, the county felt that based on the opposing driveways on Geddes, the number of driveways existing on Geddes, the volume on Geddes, that the access to this development was better to occur further south on Denton due to the volumes and traffic patterns on Denton Road. So, okay? So,
Okay,
that's
thank you.
that's
Sir?
the most information I can give you about traffic tonight.
Thank you, Jeff,
So,
appreciate
okay.
it.
Are the owners of the project here?
Brian?
I know you're representing them, but are the owners here? You're in the back, okay. Have you guys done what other projects have they done in the township?
They haven't. This is their first.
It's their first project.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Don Carney. I'm also a resident of Crystal Village. And as the subject of trees came up, I have a couple questions I'd like to ask and see how they are addressed. Along the top edge as shown on your drawing here, there is a farmer's drainage ditch. Along the drainage ditch, there is a number of dead trees that are presently in process that could fall over. Our association has already paid $600 this year for 6 or 7 trees that have come down. With the project going forward, will you come in and take some of those trees out?
And I know Brian, I think Lee has already talked to, I know that she was talking to Bogie. Bogie didn't want to touch him since he wasn't buying it, but now that we know who's moving forward with it, there are a lot of trees that are along the property line that are in danger of falling, so they need to be cleaned up.
Certainly, we are, once we're able to we can always address dying and falling trees, so I'll make sure you have a contact point of that. going forward information for that. You may not have known who to call before that point in time, because depending on who they would have communicated with. So we can certainly deal with any emergency situations. Any wholesale treatment's going to depend ultimately on us moving forward in the process and getting an appropriate tree removal permit to do that. In the meantime, if there's a particular tree that's a problem that looks threatening or anything like that, we'll make sure you have the contact information to deal with that in an appropriate time and manner. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Brian, if you can have them, just get with Lee, and Lee will walk it with them and tell them what they need to do right away.
So Mark, the engineer, you need to contact Lee Thurston, who is, in the planning department, who will coordinate that with you.
Yeah, Mark, she'll walk the line with you and tell you which ones need to be taken down right away, so.
Trees on the plan?
Address.
Sure.
Also, along that particular back line, there is a farmer's drainage ditch. Will that be removed?
We're required under the Canton, the final site plan will have much more detailed engineering with it, and the township ordinances, along with county stormwater management principles, require us to handle any flow that is currently coming across our property in a managed way. So if there is a ditch there which is essentially facilitating flow off of your property, we'll have to deal with that appropriately in our stormwater management. And Mark, the engineer, is aware of it already, but we'll certainly be on site. Not only will we design for it, then once constructed, we'll be looking at it. If a problem develops after construction, the township is actively engaging in those processes to see, okay, what can we do to deal with it, that we did, whether it's a French drain or whatever we didn't anticipate. So they look not only in the design process, but after the construction pack to make sure it works. So I would encourage you, you're going to meet the engineer, but nonetheless, after construction, when all the siding's done and everything else is done and all the trees are in, if you have any issue, stay engaged with it and keep the township engaged, because they'll continue to work with you to make sure those problems are resolved.
Yeah, they have to pick up all their stormwater in the rear yard system, and they look at what the stormwater system or the stormwater drainage patterns are off-site, so they look within the vicinity of the property so that they can pick up the natural water flows from one property to the other, so.
Brian, could you show us on this plan where the drain situation?
He's referring to essentially what would be the right border there of the site.
Actually, up here, on the top.
Oh, the top, I'm sorry, okay, the top, I thought you were
It's
referring to the
the
right.
east property
The top,
line.
okay. So the east property line then, along the top of the picture, so.
Yeah, that's where the undeveloped property is.
Yeah,
It's his
and as
property.
Jeff indicated, most of our stormwater retention is going to be done underground in a managed system, obviously, so we're prepared capacity-wise to deal with anything that's occurring on-site or coming on-site from off-site at this point, so we're prepared for that.
Talked about people being able to walk on grass. However, before, like one of the residents said, there's mobility issues. And if you have mobility issues, you can't go on grass. With my grandmother, I know I can't push her wheelchair.
Harder to push. Right,
Yeah, so, I mean, we really encourage more sidewalks and walking paths.
We
Yeah,
have
this development
sidewalks
has-
throughout the
yeah.
entire project.
Yeah, this development has sidewalks on both sides of the street.
They may not show well
They
because
have
of the drawing,
sidewalks
but-
along Getty's Road and sidewalks all down Denton Road. I think the issue is, that Greg brought up, was providing a sidewalk connection between their internal street and the end of the street in Crystal Village. And that's between associations, it's private property.
Yep.
If they want to provide an internal connection, that's up to them. We can't require it. I think the issue is if somebody in one development wants to get somebody in the other development, I think, Greg, your argument is, then they have to go out to Denton Road, walk up Denton Road, walk into the development, so that lengthens their walk from house to house if they don't have an integrated sidewalk system between the developments.
Yeah, and we're absolutely amenable to it, but I certainly understand the interest and the concerns of the neighbors who would be the other sides of the opposing parcel. If they didn't ever anticipate people walking between their units, then I would understand their resistance to providing for that, but that's entirely within the discretion of the association, so we're amenable to it. Yeah.
This is the final site plan, but you've obviously had meetings with residents before.
This is
What
the
kind-
preliminary.
Preliminary
site
site
plan.
plan.
Yeah.
Have you had any, preliminary. Have you had any meetings with residents at all?
We've met with residents here in the process of the rezoning and the other uses, but not had any other individual meetings. There's been, this process, has moved forward, as Jeff indicated, through a long process through the township. But all along, we've indicated that the product and the development's going to look identical to what the neighbors are living in and what they purchased as well, so, in single story as well. So many of the issues you would normally think you were going to have that would cause concerns around there don't exist on this project, so.
Except for traffic that we hear a lot of.
Well, listen, Crystal, actually, as Jeff pointed out, Crystal contributes to a lot of the traffic issues as well, but they also contributed to the improvements that the county made along there as well. And so, yeah, we get that. But this is, the great news is, I think someone indicated that they're worried about there being potentially 2 vehicles per unit. This being an empty nester project, you won't see three vehicles per unit, because you don't expect a lot of high school or other kids living in this project as well. So it would actually have less of a traffic impact than if it were simply developed under a straight, normal, single-family residential development
And
standard.
it's generally not peak hour traffic either.
Yeah, right. No,
They're
yeah,
not,
that's exactly right.
they're not going
peak
to
hour.
work.
Right.
and, yeah.
Yeah, you won't have this subdivision will not be contributing to the going to school traffic that you see along Denton or around there.
Jeff, if they're, let's say they do build it and the traffic does get a little bit worse than the county anticipated, what happens then?
County has to fix it then, it's their road.
But I mean, do we call them in, or do they do how does that go?
If there's an issue with traffic timing, we'll call the county and have their traffic engineers go out and look at the timing of the light. But, you've got a full intersection improvement there now with left turn lanes. So, once you fully improve an intersection, the only thing they could do would be to add left turn protects on some of those. I don't think there's left turn arrows in all directions in those cases. There's left turn lanes that you still have to yield to oncoming traffic. So the only other improvement they could would be to left protect the turn signals from a safety standpoint. That's usually as volumes increase and people can't move through the intersection, that's when people take chances to make a left when they shouldn't, and that's when the warrants come in for the left turn protects, where you add the left turn arrow to the intersections. We have many intersections in Canton where we think there should be left turn arrows that there aren't, because the county says they haven't met the warrants for that yet. So the county has a whole warrant process that they go through, and those are legal warrants, and they evaluate the roadway and the driveway based on those design warrants and those legal warrants in terms of what they can legally require somebody to put in or do. And that's how they evaluate every driveway, that's how they evaluate every project. And they look at the existing conditions on the roadway, they look at the design volumes, they look at the design speeds, they look at the traffic signals, they look at all of those factors, and they apply their design warrants to those and see which warrants are met and which then prompts them to do certain improvements, or to have the developer do certain improvements to take care of whatever is warranted by their process. So they have to, from a legal standpoint, they have to follow those warrants. Same thing with MDOT. When they look at a project, it's like up on Ford Road, when they look at that driveway, they'll look at the warrants based on the existing conditions on the roadway, the design conditions of the roadway, and they'll make those decisions based on those warranted improvements. So.
Audience? Okay. How about from the commission? Anything going on here? Have we answered the questions?
This is just preliminary. We're not going to see the finals till down the road.
When they finish engineering, and they'll be back in for final, just like Aspen Ridge. So.
Go ahead.
I move to recommend approval of the preliminary site plan for a non-village located on tax parcel 126-99-0008-701 as proposed.
Support.
All right, we have a
motion and
a motion. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber.
It's late.
Wow. Brain fart. And support by Commissioner Perkins. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Graham-Hudak?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes. And Chairman Green?
Yes. Motion goes forward, and
Okay, thanks,
thank you.
Brian.
And thank you all for participating tonight. That is all of our agenda items tonight. We do have some things to send to our staff for future consideration. Brookwood Park Site Condominiums, do I hear a motion to move that to staff?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Anything at
We
the,
probably have two potential public hearings that haven't been set yet. One is for an assisted living facility up on Kent Center, and the other is for Westchester 3 up on Warren Road. So those two will probably be on the agenda for July. We may have 4 public hearings in July. Right next to, just south of Fraser Bikes. July 10th.
somebody's finally interested in that?
Yeah, next meeting is the next meeting you have is study session in 2 weeks on the 19th. That's our master plan workshop with Dick Carlisle, with the Township Board, and then our next regular meeting is July 10th. No.
Mr.
I don't know,
Chairman,
unless you're going to test me, I don't know.
make a motion to adjourn?
Support. Oh, you're going to have to duke that out as to who.
Oh,
She can have it.
I'll let Connie figure it out. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you,
Let's
folks.
go.